Welcome to Beyond Sunday, the King of Kings podcast, where we dive a little bit deeper into our sermon series and see what we're taking beyond Sunday. My name is Dina Newsom, and I have some great, fun guests today. I don't know, guys, does that put the pressure on?
Yes.
Yeah. Here's what I've learned about Seth Flick and Montana. This is Peter Bay of King of Kings Northwest, by the way. And my short time working with Seth is if you say, like, hey, it's going to be a good day, he freezes. Like, I've seen him just stand in one spot for like 4 or 5 minutes at a time.
Not speaking at all?
Yeah, he doesn't even move. It's like, I don't know if he's rebooting or what's going on.
Have you ever seen the scared goats? Or like,
Where
you
they tip
scare the
over?
goat and they just tip over? That's me in most social circumstances.
Yeah, I've noticed that. He'll make the goat sound and then just tips.
Oh, yeah. Check it out. So, like, you do this thing right here and you go,
That's a beautiful goat
I know.
sound.
I've been practicing a lot, actually.
Okay, maybe he's just proficient with goat sound. All right.
And goat impersonations.
Yep.
It's
Freezing goat.
a lot of Goat Boy from Saturday Night Live from back in the day.
That's good stuff.
Chris Kattan, right? Was
I
he?
think it was Jim Brewer.
Yeah, Brewer.
Oh, yeah. Chris Kattan was the, like, monkey boy.
Yes.
But I don't remember what he was
There was a
called,
lot of
but yeah.
animal boys at the
Yep.
time.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
there
like
was
that
a-
this is where we're going
Yes.
with our podcast conversation.
All right, so getting a little bit more on track, this week we started a new sermon series called Game On, where we are looking at some biblical truths through 4 iconic video games. So my question to open us up today is, what video game from your childhood were you just killer at? Which one did you love to play?
All right, so old school stuff. Super Mario Brothers 1, I knew where all the level ups were. And my other one was Contra, because there's this like famous code that almost anybody who games knows. And that is, for those who listen, up, up, down, down, left, right, BA, BA, select start if you're doing 2 players. But that's like deep cut stuff.
Wow.
But anybody who knows Konami games, it's the same code, like unlock code for all of them. But my favorite, I think, that I was really proficient at was GoldenEye from James Bond with the N64. I would pick Odd Job, and he would throw his hat and like take people out. It was like the OG Fortnite.
Wow.
Yeah, so growing up, my parents were strictly against video games. The only time we were allowed was that we would rent an entire system on our birthday.
Wow.
We'd go over to Debbie's
So
video.
it's sinful except on, or unacceptable at least, except on a birthday.
Right, and then you could play video games for 48 straight hours until the basement just smelled like one sweaty Cheeto. And then it would go back to Debbie's video, and we wouldn't touch another game until my brother's birthday.
So this is like the Mardi Gras of video games for you.
Oh, for sure. And so we're terrible at every video game ever created. But the ones we enjoy the most were Tecmo Super Bowl.
Ooh, yeah,
Not
that's a good one.
Not Tecmo Bowl. Tecmo Super Bowl.
Super
Ken
Bowl.
Griffey Jr. Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, I think GoldenEye was a big part of our, because you're a little older than me, but not much. It was a big part of our childhood.
It's huge.
Yeah. So if you haven't checked out GoldenEye, you will not be impressed when you look at it now. But for us, it was as good as it gets.
Oh, yeah, I dusted it off for the kids. And I was like, this is the best game you'll ever play. This is the first 4-player game outside of Nintendo Track and Field. It's going to blow your mind. And I turned it on, and they just kind of walked away. Meh.
Meh.
It was a step up from Wolfenstein, but that's about it.
What console would you rent for your birthday? Was it an Atari or?
No, I'm not that old. It's Super
Okay.
Nintendo.
Thanks. I'm not that old.
Yeah, when I started, it was Nintendo, and then we got up to Super Nintendo. But by the time like N64 is out, we were no longer renting systems.
You were owning?
No, I've never owned a system in my life.
Wow.
Still not to this day.
Well, we do have this thing called a NEX, and there's no controllers. It just does the whole thing off body movement.
That's actually kind of cool.
It is really cool. And so you can do home run derby and tennis and driving and whatever, no controllers whatsoever. So
You must save so much money on batteries.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yes, although all the money we save in batteries, it goes towards like the RC cars that burns through a battery in like 12 minutes. So, yeah.
So I'm a wee bit older than you, gents.
Wait.
And,
That was a
And
great
are you
pun.
saying that?
wee
That was a
bit.
pun.
Yeah.
And when I grew up, the game system that we had was the Intellivision, which was like the first competitor to the Atari, which was the original OG game console. And my dad would not buy an Atari because he got a deal on an Intellivision, and he was an accountant and very cheap. So
Google.
yeah. Frugal, very frugal. But on the Intellivision, I was a master at Q*bert. That was my game, Q*bert.
I've seen Q*bert on Wreck-It Ralph.
Yep, Q*bert was my favorite game. And half of it was it was simple. You just had to hop on the cubes and turn them the right color. But there was something very appealing about the sound that Q*bert make, the blurp that it would make when you hopped on the cubes.
So it was
I loved. My older brothers did not like Q*bert, but I enjoyed it.
Was he the hopper?
Yeah.
So he did the hopping. He's a good guy?
Yeah.
He looked like a good guy.
Yeah, he was.
Looked like a buddy.
He looked like someone that would blurp.
Yeah. He's a blurper for sure, but in the best way.
Yes. But with my kids, when we got video games, when my kids got older, Super Smash Brothers was the one that I could hold my own on that. Well, I don't know what I'm doing. I just randomly move things around and hit the buttons.
Button mashing is the way to do it.
I can hold my own.
We're going to hear about that one.
I know.
And that'll be the first time I've ever even seen an image of that game.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah. So.
We might need to bring that here and play. I think you would be fun to play Super Smash Brothers with.
Yeah. Or I could be like the announcer.
Well, yeah.
There's a pause there. She doesn't want that.
No, I just think I would enjoy your excitement at trying to figure out the chaos. It's a little bit chaotic, and I think that's an environment you thrive in. So.
There you go. The Peter Bay
story. That's a ringing endorsement.
Figuring out the chaos.
That should be the subtitle of your movie.
There you go. Not a book, just a movie.
Yeah, that's right.
Straight to film.
You couldn't read.
Straight to streaming.
It would be inauthentic for it to be a book.
All right. So in our message series, Pastor Zach Zender is leading this, and he opened up this week with Super Mario Brothers, which is a game that I honestly, I know Mario and the story of Mario, but I have never really intently played Super Mario. So some of the game aspect was I know the idea of the power-ups and stuff, but it was a little bit foreign to me. But it's a very popular, long-running mini offshoot games from Super Mario Brothers. And when he opened us up, this was a really great message to start with. What are you guys taking beyond Sunday from this opening game on message?
That hours and hours of my childhood were not wasted because I got all of the references, at least.
Yeah, similar to reading, I've probably only played that game a handful of times. I did see the movie. But yeah, the way that he tied in, just how normal a person Mario is, and as I've not played the game, but I totally know who Mario is, and connecting it to David of the Bible, it was a brilliant tie-in. And actually, because when I think of David, I think of the heroics, and then the terrible sins, and a man after God's own heart. I rarely remember he was just a dude watching sheep, and not even brought out when Samuel asked for all the sons to come. So it's cool to think of David in that way. And then it's humbling for myself too, because I think my tendency, and probably a tendency of a lot of people, is to think down on myself. So God's got a plan for me, whether I feel great about it or I don't know what it is.
Yeah. I really liked the tie-in between Mario just being normal and David just being a boy, and us feeling like we don't have anything amazing to offer. That connection was what really spoke to me about this one. So one of the phrases that Pastor Zach said at the start was kind of God selects who the world rejects. The story the Bible event that he was talking about was from 1 Samuel 16, and it's the anointing of David. So I don't know if one of you want to kind of summarize kind of what happens in that little story when Samuel goes to find the next king. But then Zach talked about how God selects who the world rejects, and how did that hit you guys?
Yeah, let me describe it, and then Seth, you correct it. Okay?
This is a fun
You'll
game.
Be great.
And so there's this prophet. His name is Sammy.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, that's fine. I like it.
Samuel.
Oh, yeah. And God's like, you're going to find the dude, the next king dude, and it's going to be over at this guy's house. And who was his name? The guy?
Jesse.
There you go. And so then he goes over to Jesse's house. And he's like, bring out your sons.
Not his daughter, because that would be Jesse's girl, and that would be a totally different reference whatsoever.
Yep. Brilliant stuff right here. And so then these bros come out, and Samuel's like, no, not this guy, not this guy. And Jesse's like, well, this guy looks real good. Nope, not him either. And he keeps going and going, and they're all no's. And then Sam stops and he's like, what's going on? I was told I'm going to anoint somebody here. Where is he? You missing one? Like, what happened? And then Jesse's like, well, you got to check by the sheep. And then he's like, no, we're staying right here. Don't sit down. You're not sitting. Nobody's sitting down. No water breaks. So then David comes, like, I picture David walking. He's like, and then he comes up, and then Sam's like, whoa, that's the guy. And then he gets anointed.
Yeah, actually, that's really on point.
Nice.
Yeah.
So how do you see this idea of David being the eighth one, the one that Jesse wasn't even going to bring out, and Mario being just a normal plumber? How do you see this play out in your life or in our culture where God selects who the world rejects?
Okay, so one thing that I think goes beyond Sunday here is God had been preparing David in the field and preparing his character in the field before he was even selected. So, I mean, one of the stories we know about David when he was in the field is that he had already protected the entire flock from the attack of a bear, and he was able to, with the hand of the Lord, go against that bear, take him out. And then a lion. So it's like in each one of these things, he's been tested in his character, tested in his resolve out in the field. So we may not have seen what was going on with David. Jesse may not have seen what was going on with David. Samuel certainly didn't see what was going on with David. But God did, and he was crafting David's story to get him to that point. So it looked like obscurity, but actually that's only from our perspective. It's not from God's perspective. And I think that's what we can take from that is that there's a lot of obscurity that we think that we enter into, being just normal Mario people. And that's not really the case. God's preparing us for something incredible.
Yeah, that's great.
I really liked just the continued idea of David was just there. Like you said, he was already being prepared. This wasn't something he was asking for, but he was the one. Samuel was not even there for the double portion Eliab. That's my favorite phrase of the day is double portion. And I just want Zach to walk around and say it with his arms like this the whole time. Double portion.
Like he's beefy?
Yeah.
Double portion.
That's going to be the phrase I now try to work into conversation. I love it. But he looked like what Samuel was imagining a king was going to look like, but that's not who God had selected. So Pastor Zach kind of moved on and talked about sometimes your mission starts well before others can see you. Can you speak to a time that maybe you've seen this, either words are hard today.
Words are hard.
Another biblical reference or something in the world that you've experienced?
Yeah, being a teacher and then working in kids ministry for many years, and Dina, you came from kids ministry as well. I think we got to witness it even when we didn't know we were witnessing it with these kids who some of them are really attentive and they want to please you. And some of them, it's like, what are you doing today? And regardless of their temperament, what God does with them as they grow up. And the kid who's just always looks like they're messing around and now they're leading a church. Mm-hmm. It's an incredible thing to see how God has fashioned and honoring that we get to be a part of it to some degree, more so for their parents and grandparents who have done that work. And that reminder of regardless of our temperament, regardless of how goofy we are, regardless of how well you think that kid is listening, God is crafting and working on that kid in that moment. So I got to see that in teaching and kids ministry.
And I would agree. Having worked in a church with a school and having had been there for a really long time, it was amazing to see young men who I knew when they started in high school and then getting a chance to do premarital counseling with them and to see them get married and have their child baptized and become like full-on contributing members, deep disciples of Jesus is great. Biblically, though, I mean, we can even look at a character like Ruth, who, you know, a lot of bad things were happening in her life. She lost her husband. She lost her brother-in-law. She lost her father-in-law and was basically just going to wander around with Naomi. But then, you know, as she was being prepared, she went to go glean in the fields. It happened to be Boaz's field. And God was cultivating that relationship the whole time. Boaz, and then eventually, Ruth, because of the kinsman redeemer relationship, came together, who then had Obed, who then had Jesse, who then had David. And so it's kind of neat to see the way that God had crafted Ruth in her character, told that story in relative obscurity for us to know about, but now she's a part of Jesus's genealogy, and David is in there, and Jesus is in there because of that.
Yeah, the Bible is riddled with people who didn't think that they were the right person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all of the disciples. You have Moses, like, I can't talk to him. Over and over and over again, it's God saying, no, I chose you.
I love that. Do you want to know what the Hebrew actually is there?
What is it?
When he rejects God, he's like, my tongue's too fat. Isn't that awesome? Like, hey, I got a message for you. Oh, I'm sorry. My tongue's too fat.
That is awesome. Like he got stung by a bee right on the tongue.
The bee of the spirit.
That would be tough though if you had a real fat tongue.
That's how I would sound.
Yeah. But over and over and over again, people who do not feel qualified, and that reminder that God doesn't call the qualified people. He qualifies each of us as we're called into his mission field.
Yeah. I really like Pastor Zach said, the world may overlook you, but God sees you no matter where you are. And I think of for years, 10 years running, I went and did mission work in Hong Kong every summer and did VBS and I never knew who our team was going to be. We would take youth from our team, like high schoolers and sometimes college kids from our church and from other area churches. And I never knew who our team was going to be, but I always knew once we came together, God had been working in them and how they were going to be the right part of our team or just what we needed when we got to Hong Kong, and then how they were going to influence the kids that we got to share the gospel with over there, that it was always the right person for the job. Even when I would be like, oh, come on, this kid? Like, really, this kid doesn't know how to speak. He didn't have a fat tongue, but he never says more than 2 words at a time. And we'd get to Hong Kong, and it was a totally different ballgame.
Cool.
He was speaking very eloquently, or people who were really shy were really outgoing, or we needed those shy people to relate to some of the kids. And it was just always how God put that all together, just what we needed. Okay, so Zach talked about 4 points relating to our mission. So talking about mission, and I just want to know kind of how you relate to these 4 points. So number 1, your mission may start in obscurity, which we kind of touched base on. Number 2, your mission is less about your highlights and more about your heart. 3, your mission is fueled by his spirit. And 4, your mission starts where you are, not when you're ready, but when you show up. And like, is there one of those that really spoke to you, or how do you relate to those regarding your life mission?
Yeah, interestingly, I think most times in my life, I would have answers for all of these except for point 3. And right now, I feel like point 3 is where God is impressing a lot right now, and that moving in the spirit. And the part of that is because I truly believe that the fruit of the spirit is foreign to this world. And so when people see someone who is suffering with cancer and they're joyful, they can't understand it. Or they see someone who has peace in a horrendously tough situation. How can this even be? Or they see kids who have joy, who live in a third world country. And so the fruit of the spirit, living with that, not because like I'm trying really hard to do that, but because God gives it to his kids and then we work to grow it. I think that's been a big one for me, is to know the Holy Spirit dwells in me and has given me his fruit, and it matters. And for the people outside, it does make an impact because they're seeing God and his love through the way I get to live.
I'd say I would put number 1 and number 4 together, that there's a starting in obscurity and you're still called to show up. And I think there's way too many people that they start in obscurity and then they self-select to stay there because they're too intimidated. They think that there's no way that they could be used for something important or engaging or valuable. And so rather than coming out of the pasture to the calling, they just kind of stick around, and they would rather dwell in obscurity than serve the Lord because it's scary and it takes a lot of courage. David could have just stayed out there with the sheep and nobody would have batted an eye because that was his job. It was comfortable for him. He knew what to expect. Might have been dirty, but He knew exactly what to expect day to day. But instead, he responded to the call to come and submit himself to Samuel, and Samuel then was able to meet that with a grander calling than what he had ever experienced before. And I just wonder how many people within our church, how many people listening to this podcast are being called to something greater, but right now they've said no because they're afraid. And I guess I would just want to encourage that anybody that is listening to this right now, you know you're called to do something. Somebody needs to hear this. I don't know who it is. Stop saying no and start showing up. Show up first with your heart. Allow that to be cleansed by the Lord to take away all of that fear, and then show up and just wait and see what he's going to do. It could be scary. It will be scary, but it's going to be worth it. And it was worth it for David.
Yeah. When he talked about all you need to do is show up, that's the one that really spoke to me. I'm a sports movie fanatic. Like, I really enjoy sports movies. And there's a really bad movie from, I don't know, early 2000s about, it's called Hardball, and it's Keanu Reeves, and he's like a gambling addict and gets roped into coaching this. And it's based on a true story. That's why it stuck out to me. But he gets roped into coaching this baseball team from the projects. And, one of the things that he says to them at the end of the movie is, "Thank you for showing up. I'm blown away by your ability to show up." And that line always stuck with me, because it didn't matter if they were, winning the games or playing their best effort. They were facing hardships outside of the field, and they were still showing up for the team. And that's what I thought of when Zach started talking about showing up. I was like, God is blown away by our ability to just show up and let him use us. But we just have to be willing to let him direct us from that. And that really jumped out at me. Okay, so when Pastor Zach was kind of wrapping up his message, he did a little take on some numbers in the Bible. So I wrote it down so I could make sure and get it right. So I'm going to read it. And then I just want to know, what do you guys have to say about this? Or what extra do you know about it? Or anything. In the Bible, number 6 is for man, for sin. And all of us have a story of 6. In the Bible, the number 7 is for completion or perfection. And all of us have been made complete by the perfect, complete grace of Jesus Christ. In the Bible, the number 8 is new beginnings. What if the phrase, "I am number 8, is a beautiful thing? Because your story is not over. If you've had 6 chapters of sin and then been redeemed in 7, your chapter 8 is not over. Your story is not done." How does that speak to you guys?
Well, a lot of that tie into the numbers when it comes to theology. Actually has to go back also to the days of creation and then fall and redemption. And so there are 6 literal days of creation. God rested on the 7th day. And then after that rest is where we jacked it up. And it's after that Christ brings the new day based off of his resurrection. And so that's one of the reasons why we celebrate Sunday as, not only Easter because it happened 3 days after his crucifixion on a Friday, but because that would be like an 8th day recreation. But even like an old school architecture, when you go into an older church, like a Catholic church or an older Lutheran church, you go and you look at the font, and the majority of baptismal fonts are created as 8 sides on the outside of it. Have you seen that before, where it's in like an octagon?
Yes, but I've never thought about it that way. Yep. You should see Peter and I's face right now. We're both blown away by this knowledge.
If you look at older baptismal fonts, they usually have 8 sides, and that's because this is an old theology, a good theology about being recreated due to baptism. And I just think because he had talked about that as well. And we had just had Baptism Sunday here not too long ago. So there have been many people that had their opportunity in a font of sorts or a cistern or whatever it is that we can call it. But either way, it's baptism, and it's connecting to the recreation that we get to experience in Jesus.
Wow. Yeah. I am a new creation because of Christ. And my incredible achievements don't define me, and my incredible disappointments don't disqualify me because of Christ. I'm a new creation. So that whole explanation of the 8 side, I have noticed that with baptismals. I had no idea why. I never knew that connection. So that's a powerful picture. So next time I'm in an old school church and I see that baptismal, that's a beautiful, I am number 8. Like, here you go.
Yeah.
Here you go again. I think an interesting thing with our walk as Christians is, unlike a book, we kind of cycle back at times, and we live back in the earlier chapters. And like we've forgotten what happened in chapter 7 when Christ died for us and paid for the price, and we don't live like chapter 8 and onward Christians. So that's part of that picture, that redemption. Like, I can mess up, I can blow it, but the forgiveness doesn't go away. Like what Christ did, even if I'm living like a 1 through 6 Christian.
Do you know what that just made me think of?
Oh, Seth, this
All
is
right.
good. What do you got? Because I'm saying like just like mediocre stuff, and then he's making this stuff great.
No, like you're talking about like 1 through 6, 1 through 7.
Yeah.
But what about Acts 1:8, which is what we're called now to bring the gospel to Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth.
Yep.
And so now not only are we the ones who are redeemed and in our number 8 kind of, like identity, but in our Acts 1:8 calling, we're now called out of obscurity and into service for the Lord. And we've got a very specific target.
That's sweet.
It's about knowing your mission. That was kind of the theme for this one, this week's thing. So what are your final takeaways from this message about Super Mario in our Game On series?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the other 3 games, none of which that I've played hardly at all, but I love the imagery and the fun of games, and then connecting it to God's word in a powerful way.
I love looking into the breadth of David and his character, because there is so much to his experience that every regular Mario type person, mustachioed or not, could connect to, because there is early David who is impetuous and, just does what he's called to do. There's the David who's a musician, who sits in the court of Saul after he's anointed to be the next king. He's still called to serve the current king. There's the David who acts crazy with the Philistines and hangs out with his enemies for a really long time. There's the David who actually becomes the king. There's the David who mourns the death of a child. I mean, the character of David is incredibly complex. And so I'll give a shout out now for those who would love to see a little bit more behind the scenes on this. If you haven't seen House of David yet, it is an excellent program. It does a very good job of at least telling the biblical story of David's life. Season 1 is out on Amazon Prime. I don't work for Amazon. I don't get sponsorships or anything. But the 8 episodes that they do have really help bring the story to life. And yes, they add artistic flair in this, but the whole point is not to make it the Bible. The whole point is to show you this TV show, introduce you to a character, and then make you say, wait, is that in the Bible? And then you go back and you read the actual word of God that's living and active. And we have number 8 stories because of the Jesus of the Bible. So I would definitely suggest people go take a look at House of David too.
Yeah, I'm excited just looking into more of the story of David, because I feel like most of the time when we talk about David, we talk about one window of his life. And that's the story that people remember, that resonates them, and they don't ever look at the whole piece together. So that's an exciting piece of this for me. What really stuck with me, the final takeaway for me, was when Zach said the world crowns talent and God crowns character. And that kind of tied it all together for me, because here's David, who has this incredible heart and becomes a hero because of it, quote unquote hero, and Mario, who has an incredible heart, who chooses to do the right thing and save people and help people even when it's hard, and becomes a hero, and how we can be the hero in our own story, when we discover our mission and let God work within that. But it comes with God crowning our character and having the right heart and having the right character with it. And that spoke a lot to me. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we are giving away a few Nintendo Switch 2 consoles. If you're listening and you would like to invite a friend to come and join you to experience this message series, you can go to our website, kingofkings.org/gameon, and you can invite a friend through the website, and you'll be entered to win one of the consoles that we'll be giving away at the end of the month. We're going to give away one at each campus. It'll be an exciting time. So next week, we'll dive into week 2 of this message. So Peter, I just feel like you always close us out now when you're here. So
Okay, yeah.
So what would you like to do for this one?
Yeah, we're going to do a Barry White closeout.
Oh.
So if anyone wants to add to it, they can.
Anyone at all?
Yeah, if anyone in this room wants to add to that, they can. So here we go. Hey there. You heard that message on Sunday. I know you did. You heard about God's love for you. Are you a little David, are you? Are you number 8? Well, if so, Sunday's done. Monday's here. Go get it, baby. Live life like Monday. After Sunday, what? Yeah.
I'm done. No, there's nothing better's going to come after that.
Crushed it.